with an explosive landing that shattered the roof of the church and laid waste to the apostles that stood in her way. Lucy declared that she had never been much of a believer. However, she did believe that those who had sinned definitely deserved to be punished for it, and her eyes flamed with purple malice. The archbishop was not having it, and he yelled, asking why she would call him a sinner. However, the powerful mage did not have time to answer his questions, and she tossed one of the winged apostles into the wall so casually. It was engraved in both the temple and in their laws. A swell of magic gathered in Lucy's hand as power flamed around her. She stared into the eyes of the shocked and terrified man, accusing him of the sin of arrogance. The archbishop yelled in outrage, asking the gifted mage what exactly she thought that she was doing. The girl had truly turned from the grace of their Lord Telos, and he once again cast out the apostles to do the fighting for him. Lord forbid he tried to defend himself with his own hands. Fortunately for him, the apostles of Telos were truly zealous, and they charged ahead. Their determination was not wavered by the sight of their fallen colleagues, and they rushed to fight Lucy with all of their might. Reuben led the charge, meeting the powerful mage first, and he raised his mighty sword to bring her down and stop her onslaught of attacks. As Telos willed, he would fight to his last breath. Lucy did not serve a particular god, but she had her own will and determination. A flick of her fingers sent magic dancing in the air, and the poor apostle was roasted by her attack. He screamed in pain as the mage's purple aura flooded him. Reuben could barely stand, holding himself up with his sword after her attack. Fortunately, he did not have to worry about that because the lightspeed apostle Taldarak then chose that moment to make his appearance. Taldarak was furious that Lucy would come into their sacred ground and taint their holy chapel. He raised his weapon that glowed golden like many of the holy apostles, and he swore to be her end. The apostle flew at her with his lance poised to strike, but Lucy was unbothered by his approach. When it came to this battle, it would never be a matter of speed. The talented girl, beloved and feared by all, activated her spatial leap and zapped away from where she had been standing, shocking the charging apostle. The girl had the power to manipulate space itself, and within seconds, she was behind him. Another lazy flick of her fingers, and Taldarak was zapped as well, screaming in agony as her magic consumed him. The apostle put on a brave fight, but the pain he felt when faced with the might of the talented mage's magic was indescribable. The archbishop was horrified to see his best fighters fall. The apostles of Telos were each individually hailed as some of the strongest people in the nation, and yet they were getting batted around by a teenage girl who had not even completed high school. Not even 6 of them were enough to stand against her might. The archbishop could not believe it, and he wondered how this could even be possible. His eyes widened as he realized that he had an even more important question to answer. He wondered how the girl had even known to attack this place. In order to raise the authority of the order, they had planned to revive the Holy Lance Dragon and strike it down. Their very stupid idea was to take place on the stage that was Archon Island, which was filled with lots of students and innocent lives to save. They could not afford any part of this plan leaking. However, the plan had failed, and the archbishop grabbed his magical box, instantly shutting it. They needed to secure a path to retreat, and their priority now was to protect His Holiness, the Holy Pope Eldine. Lucy scowled to see the man running away, as she had no intention of letting him escape. With a wave of her hand, the powerful mage activated Time Prison, the chronistic aspectual magic. The bishop squealed in horror, crying for Brother Taldarak to come save him like he was some damsel in distress. It was frankly embarrassing. Fortunately for that guy, the apostle Taldarak was really dedicated, because he popped out at the call of the bishop. All of this was for the sake of their Lord Telos. The apostle spread his holy wings and withstood the onslaught of magical power waves, protecting the archbishop as he made his desperate, cowardly escape. The cowardly man was not done calling for help, and he yelled for Cleve to snatch the saintess. The man did exactly that and snatched up Clarice, hauling the girl over his shoulder. The girl cried for him to unhand her, but of course, the archbishop ranked fairly higher than the saintess. They had to bring the necklace, which was physical evidence, and the witness, who was the saintess, with them, so that no word of their evil and dastardly plan would ever get out. If they pressured the academy while using the Holy Pope's authority, then, regardless of what Lucy said, they would surely be ignored. The archbishop had already thought of a sneaky and disgusting escape plan like this. If Lucy was not already disgusted with him, she surely would be now. The girl then activated her high-ranking electric magic and sent down purple divine punishment on those scampering rats. Her magic flew after the archbishop and the 2 apostles who fled with him. The electric magic danced in the air, seeking out her targets. The apostle's golden glow of power did its best fighting back, but there was very little in this world that could overpower the mage when she got serious. One of the apostles was seized, and he cried out in pain as attack magic coursed through him, yelling for his cohorts to hurry up and escape. The other apostles who were still standing gathered the Pope and fled as the apostle who sacrificed himself yelled for them to escape and gather at the agreed-upon location. Regardless of what may come, the ever-faithful apostle was willing to even give his life so that the order would be victorious. The mage tusked in annoyance to see that her targets were indeed succeeding in getting away. The archbishop was an evil man, but he was certainly resilient. The apostle warned that even if they ran away like this, they would eventually be caught. The archbishop did not really mind. Even if it was only for a moment, they planned on destroying the evidence and retrieving the saintess. Once they had informed the academy of this act of violence, then they would surely get justice. That was when a voice-activated ignition was introduced. The archbishop's eyes widened in horror as flames consumed the temple and the path that would lead them to escape. The beautiful swirling pool of fire radiated intense heat, and the ever-faithful Taldarak protected his cowardly religious leader behind his mighty wings that charred in the flames. Even the apostle could not understand how mere basic magic could burn so powerfully. Then he froze when a blade was suddenly pointed so close that it could pierce his eyes. Taldarak leapt backwards immediately, swinging his blade in a wide swing to push back the blade. The blade danced before him as it activated its spirit formula of explosion. The large explosion could be seen from quite a distance in the school, and the students were alarmed and in awe to see such a large explosion. They wondered what on earth was going on as the explosion had come from the direction of the academy chapel. A figure stepped out of the Inkai gray soot that danced in the air, and the cowardly archbishop sprang forward, fleeing quickly, abandoning the apostle who sacrificed his strength for him. Ed was not about to let that villain escape so easily. Commanding his bat fire spirit to follow him, Ed charged after that evil man. The archbishop cursed that the boy had somehow predicted their retreat and was lying in wait. The evil man wondered if the boy was working together with that hat-wearing brat who had toasted most of his strongest fighters. The archbishop was heavily on the run, and he fired a holy spell at it, intending to stop the meddling brat. Mug got caught up in the attack, and the little fur spirit apologized to his young master as that despicable archbishop got away. The blonde noble watched that man hobble away from them with a clenched fist, but he was not about to give up just yet. The archbishop had fled into the woods, and he was huffing and puffing as he moved quickly through the leaves and the trees. He hoped by now that he had lost his pursuers, and he planned to hide together with the evidence of his evil deeds. He would hide the necklace, and then it would all be over. Nobody would be able to find him within this dense forest, and he laughed with glee about that. However, that very dense forest that he was just celebrating about also happened to be our guy's hunting grounds. The main character popped out of the bushes like a monster from a horror film, weapons swinging and everything. With a dark and threatening look on his face, Ed demanded that the bishop hand over the necklace. The boy very disrespectfully grabbed that wicked religious leader by the ponytail and yanked, toppling that horrid old man to the ground. The two fell off a steep hill, and they continued rolling on the ground as they fought. The archbishop fought to get away while Ed fought to hold on tight to the evil man. Now the archbishop was looking a tad more devilish than before with his hair down. Seeing that the blonde was aware of the necklace, it looked like the boy knew everything. In fact, the wicked man could not guess that Ed had been the one to send the little pest of a mage that had broken down the church. However, the archbishop was determined not to lose at this point. Fortunately, Ed had no intention of losing either. He caught the wicked man off guard, flipping them so that he would be on top. This triggered the archbishop to fire at the boy in fear, and the main character sustained damage to his shoulder from the blast of holy magic. It was painful, but not as agonizing as the pain the archbishop felt when Ed could finally sink his dagger into him. The man screamed in agony. It was satisfying after all the horrible things he'd done. Still, that wicked man clung tightly to his box, so tightly he held on to his beliefs. Ed was not having it. He demanded that the archbishop let go immediately. The boy had been warned that the archbishop Verdio was strong. Even without the apostles of Telos at his side, the man would not be easy to subdue. They were fast running out of time if they wanted to stop the revival of the Holy Lance Dragon. The boy needed the man to give up on his evil plan. Besides, their enemy had been planning this evil work for a really long time. Even if he got the talented mage's help, there was a high chance that they would end up failing. It would be nice if they could just turn back time once more in order to get more information. But Adele was also running out of time, and she had sustained multiple injuries. However, the tired blonde musician suddenly reassured the boy that it was fine. Smiling like a sacrificial saint, she said that it was fine if they failed. She was sure that she could still turn back time a few more times. The boy gritted his teeth, enraged by the sweet lie she had said to ease his worries. He was not going to let that happen. Her powers were nearly exhausted, and it would not be strange if she were to drop dead any second now. They had no time to hesitate, so he stabbed the old priest bloody like he was a full-fledged criminal. The main character had never gone this hard into attack mode since the story started. Finally, the tired old man had to let go of the box, and Ed grabbed it. Panting heavily, the blonde opened the box and revealed the magical power that could restore the evil dragon. To his horror, he found that power was still flowing, even though he did not understand why. The evil archbishop looked like a madman when he declared that the dragon would surely soon be resurrected. The apostles were taken down, so only the saintess could stop the evil now. Then all would have to know and adore the greatness of their Lord Telos. Despite all of their efforts, it had come to this. The boy stared in horror as that pendant rose and shone, glowing blue. That power shot into the sky, and with despair, the boy understood that the Holy Lance Dragon would soon revive. Now, he understood everything. In order to prevent the Holy Lance Dragon's seal from being undone, he had to subdue the archbishop and take the necklace outside of the island. The problem was that nobody would remember this. All of their memories would be wiped as soon as time was rewound, if time was even rewound. Ed refused to accept that. He had to relay this information somehow. Adele would need to sacrifice herself once again. But even if they succeeded in turning back time, if he could not pass on this very important information, then they would fail again in exactly the same way. The boy coughed blood as the earth shook and the monster began to rise. Despite being faced with her true feelings, despite the fact that the blonde girl had cried that she did not want to die, in the end, once again, he was too late. Suddenly, someone appeared on scarred bare feet, scolding him and saying that it did not matter if he was a little late. Lucy had appeared, the brilliant and wonderful savior Lucy. The boy coughed when he saw her, struggling to say that he needed to relay his words fast. If she told the words to Adele or Clarice, it was fine either way, since he was soon about to die. However, the girl just held on to the blonde's hand, much to his surprise. He tried to urge her to relay that very important message. However, Lucy said no. It was a life or death situation, and Ed was begging the little mage to hurry and contact either of the two saintesses. It could be Adele or Clarice, either one of them would easily remember what had to be said, so he wanted the little mage to hurry. However, Lucy held onto his hand and blankly turned down his request without any remorse. This answer was shocking to Ed and he stared at her in confusion. However, the little mage explained that she did not have to carry this message. If all she had to do was relay the message to either the saintess or the girl named Adele, then she could just use magic to quickly write it down on a piece of paper. The instructions were clear. They had to steal Wellbrock's Fang necklace as quickly as possible and leave the cathedral. She easily wrote down all of Verdio's evil plan and then sent the paper flying away. If the main character practiced enough, then one day he would also learn to send messages like that. The boy was relieved, his head bent in defeat as he thanked the little mage at his side. Then he groaned in pain as the quake started again. The Holy Lance Dragon had finally been revived. The monster rose from the depths, causing widespread death and panic with every step that it took. Rather, it was more like it had revived once again, because this had already happened time and time again. Everything had now come to light. Verdio revived the Holy Lance Dragon for the sake of the Order. The location, the method, and the escape route had not been clarified, and Ed groaned that he had left out a lot in the message. He wondered if Adele was on the verge of collapsing now, and if she truly would be able to rewind time again. The poor, blood-soaked girl stood in the circle, once again awaiting her death. Even if she did succeed, the problem was time. Ed wondered if he, upon losing his memories, would even be able to formulate a plan faster. He wondered if he would once again be able to evade the apostles, somehow steal the necklace and then leave Arkan Island. So many worries filled his heart with Adele's life on the line. However, the little mage broke through his concern, telling him that she had made a promise to her old man. She had promised that if the academy were ever in great danger, then she would protect it at least once. The boy was surprised to hear this, but he also remembered that she had told him this last time. That was why, even if time were rewound again and again, the girl knew that she would have faced down that dragon each and every time, without fail. As they both watched that terrifying beast, Ed admitted that he believed that Lucy did fight the dragon. No matter how many times it appeared, she never backed down. The young mage had come to this academy to keep her final promise to the old man. She thought perhaps she had been here all this while, waiting for this very day. Now, she was done with this very tiresome waiting. However, if time was rewound once more, stopping it would be pointless. So, this time, just once, Lucy was going to allow herself to be a little selfish. This time, the tiny mage would rather be fine with dying in her man's arms. So, she curled up in the boy's arms, much to his surprise. They were surely to eventually forget that treasured memory, and they would not even remember that this intimate moment happened. In that case, there was something that she wanted to say. Something that Lucy could never find the right time to say. The thick walls that the little mage had built around them had started to collapse, felled by the mighty fall of the dragon scales around them. It was embarrassing and not very romantic. This very moment itself told the boy all that he needed to know as he sat soaked in blood by the tree, with the cat-like girl curled in his arms, her huge hat beside them. It may be that Lucy would never be able to tell Ed these words otherwise, so this was the last time that the boy would hear that she could live without him. So, the little boy begged him to never go away. The main character set his gentle hand on her head, pulling her close as he admitted that it was not even a particularly difficult request. Outside the barrier, the dragon continued to rage and roar, making a complete nuisance of itself as it brought destruction upon the school once more. In that sky full of darkness and pain, it began to rain sharp dragon scales of brilliant blue. Neither of them put up any resistance as the scales shredded their flesh into pieces. They did not cry out in pain, nor did they let out even a single groan. They simply felt each other's warmth, cradled in each other's arms as death came for them, but neither was afraid. A long time later, blood dripped from the flora that surrounded them, and the rain had come to an end. Though their bloody corpses lay, their lives spent as they still held each other even in death. Sure enough, the rewind magic washed over them, and even that very scene faded away. Once again, poor Adele found herself back in that long hall. The girl coughed furiously, her life almost completely spent as her instrument fell to the floor. Her holy power had bottomed out, and blood caked her skin and her clothes, soaking them almost completely. She could no longer affect the flow of time, and she could no longer peer into the future. Finally, the tired girl could die one last time. In the end, Adele stared ahead, knowing that she was unable to stop the Holy Lance Dragon's revival. That she was able to meet Clarice one last time was painful, but it still made her feel so happy. It was a shame that she had not gotten the opportunity to see that bright girl smile one last time. Even if it were a lie, it would have been nice if she had been able to sing for the pure saintess. On the other hand, her last encounter with Ed Rothtailor had been completely awful. The slightest flicker of the desire to survive destroyed all of her resolve. However, this intense agony that she now felt due to throwing herself into the fire again and again could not easily be dispelled. At this rate, she could die any second. This was what reminded her so naturally of what she had to do. More than anything, no matter how much it hurt, Adele had to move. She pushed and moved because it was her duty to stop the Holy Lance Dragon's revival and make it so that it would never happen. The tired girl dragged her blood-soaked body through the halls, knowing that it was her duty to die according to her predestined fate. She had now confirmed what Ed Rothtailor's plan was and how it would come to an end. However, she was sure that the plan was impossible. First, Clarice needed time to convince him, given that he had already lost his memories. While the blonde was formulating a plan, the entire morning would go by. He must then acquire the necessary forces to take the apostles of Telos, and mobilizing them would also take too much time. However fast he may be, the blonde noble would likely reach the cathedral around dusk. Meanwhile, Archbishop Verdio's plans would already be unfolding. Magic power would have already been injected into the necklace, and the Holy Lance Dragon's revival would only be a matter of time. The sun had begun its descent, and the shadows had grown longer. Once the tired girl finally passed this hallway, he would be able to enter the chapel. Now, the tired musician would have to enter the chapel and offer her body to the sacrificial rune. She was just thinking all of these very heavy and depressing thoughts when her eyes suddenly widened in shock. Right in front of Adele was the image of a bird flying high in the sky. Someone called out to Ed, asking what was wrong. The boy had suddenly collapsed in front of Janica, much to the spirit sorceress's surprise, and she desperately asked if he was okay. His book on spectral magic had fallen to the floor, and his head ached terribly. Those who had developed a resistance to spectral magic would not be affected by it completely. Adele's magic to rewind time was a combination of spectral magic and holy magic. The blessing of that holy magic offered resistance to holy magic, and as a result, Clarice maintained her memories across time. Perhaps it was because Adele had lost her strength, or perhaps because the blonde was researching spectral magic that his head ached him so. Somehow, immediately prior to his regression, the spectral magic within his body resisted Adele's spectral magic, and as a result, his eyes widened in horror as the memories of many past deaths flooded into his mind. His memories and experiences did not disappear into time, and the boy screamed as the memory of each death that he suffered hit him, and it hit him hard. The boy felt like he was going crazy, and he bit his lip in agony. The saintess and Janica stood over him, Clarice flooding him with her holy healing magic. Suddenly, the boy grabbed the hand of the saintess, knowing that they had absolutely no time to waste. Soon, the holy lance dragon would revive, and through the grace of the Lord Telos, they would defeat the monster. The Archbishop Verdio was back on his nonsense again. It was important for Ed's team to move as fast as they could, so that the Order could rise to glory once again. However, this time, a giant green bird burst into the temple. They were saving Lucy for another time. Ed had urged everyone to hurry and make their way to the cathedral as he crash-landed from the roof. The boy did not hesitate before snatching the glowing necklace right out of the box. He had seized the fang necklace in one very determined grip, and the Archbishop Verdrio growled in outrage. Ed did not have time to spend on that barking dog, who yelled for his attack apostles to deal with the main character. Golden arrows flew at the pained blonde noble, but he dodged. Through those endless loops of time, the beginning was almost always the same. Saintess Clarice would drag him into her carriage, and she would tell him about the time loop and his service number, and he would travel in the carriage, organize his thoughts, and take some time to understand the situation. The Archbishop Verdio did not know who they were, but he thought that they were truly foolish if they believed that they could win against the holy apostles of Telos. Ed couldn't care less. He had realized that he had been wasting time when the answer had always been beside him. Those golden arrows came raining down, but they did not touch him. A hand gripped tightly a beautiful glowing green staff, and with a swing of her hand, a protective bird stood over Ed, protecting him from all harm. There was something faster than the carriage by his side the entire time, and someone far stronger than he was, someone who could help him in this ridiculous situation without any explanation required. His true soulmate, the girl who would rage 1,000 storms at his request. Janica Failover had always been beside him, and without hesitation, she called out to her man so they could kick some villain butts. Alright, so the strongest tag team is here, and the action is getting wilder each episode. I know this comic keeps you guys coming back to my dying channel, so I at least try to cover it as fast as possible amidst my crazy schedule. So of course, if you enjoyed it as usual, please be sure to help your boy out by liking and sharing the video. As always, if you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing to stay notified for future uploads. Until next time.